Movies in short here. Today, I will explain a 2017 action thriller film called Atomic Blonde, which is based on the 2012 graphic novel The Coldest City. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie starts in November 1989, days prior to the collapse of the Berlin Wall. MI6 agent James Gascoigne is being chased through the streets of Berlin. He turns to look for his pursuers but is suddenly hit by a Mercedes-Benz. The driver, KGB agent Yuri Bokhtin, shoots Agent Gascoigne, then removes his wristwatch and throws him off a bridge into the water below. 10 days later in London, top-level MI6 spy Lorraine Broughton gets out of her ice bath and looks at a photograph of her and Gascoigne before setting it alight. She appears to have sustained multiple injuries from her previous mission. Lorraine is brought in to be debriefed by MI6 executive Eric Gray and CIA agent Emmett Kurzfeld about her operation in Berlin. The plot jumps between the debriefing room and flashbacks to Lorraine's time in Germany. The day after Gascoigne's death, Lorraine is informed of his murder and that he met with a German Stasi agent codenamed Spyglass. Gascoigne promised Spyglass immunity in exchange for a document on microfilm that was hidden in a Swiss watch and codenamed The List. This document contains the details of every active intelligence officer in Berlin and could extend the Cold War for another 40 years if it fell into the wrong hands. Eric Gray believes Gascoigne was most likely killed by Yuri Bokhtin and that he now has the watch containing the list. Lorraine is ordered to meet with MI6 agent David Percival and find Yuri. In East Berlin, Spyglass meets Percival at a party and tells him that he gave the list to Gascoigne the previous night and that he needs safe passage for his family out of Germany as part of their agreement. Percival says he hasn't seen Gascoigne or the watch yet, so he has no obligation to honor their deal. The police arrive to raid the party and everyone flees. Spyglass tells Percival that he memorized the list so will still be able to provide it to him in Gascoigne's absence. Percival agrees to escort Spyglass and his family out of the country when he delivers the new list. Lorraine arrives in West Berlin and when she exits the airport she encounters a man with a British accent who says Mr. Percival is running late, so he and his associate have been sent to collect her. During the trip, the man indicates that he is in fact not from MI6 but rather a member of the KGB. The men intend to take her to Comrade Alexander Bremovich for questioning, but Lorraine removes her high heel and beats the man in the back seat with it, then kicks him out of the speeding vehicle. She grabs hold of the steering wheel and drives the car into a concrete barrier, flipping the vehicle onto its roof. David Percival has been tailing them and jumps out of his Porsche. He peeks into the upturned vehicle and says, "Welcome to Berlin." Lorraine fails to find any humor in the situation and shoots at him. In East Berlin, Comrade Bremovich is busy trying to locate the whereabouts of Spyglass. Bokhtin is absent from duty, so Bremovich assumes he is busy trying to sell the list and sends one of his men to find him. Back in West Berlin, Lorraine is in her hotel room and hears an intruder. Percival has broken into her room. After subduing him, she asks if he knows anything about Spyglass. Percival lies and says he's never met him. Lorraine then goes to visit a watchmaker who doubles as an information broker. She asks him for access to a contact in East Berlin. He tells her to come back tomorrow before closing. Later that day, Lorraine breaks into Gascoigne's apartment looking for any clues that may help her find the list. Back in the debriefing room, we learn that besides finding the list, Lorraine was also tasked with catching a double agent named Satchel, described as the single biggest intelligence leak in MI6 history. In Gascoigne's apartment, Lorraine finds a photo of Percival and James, but the police arrive before she can find any further info on Satchel or the list. Percival was the only one that knew she was going to James's apartment, so he must have been the one who contacted the police. Lorraine dispatches the policeman and escapes by jumping off the balcony while hanging on to a rope. That night, Lorraine visits a restaurant in Berlin and encounters Bremovich, but Delphine LaSalle disrupts their conversation, telling Alexander that she and Lorraine haven't seen each other in a long time and really need to catch up. Bremovich leaves the restaurant. Delphine invites Lorraine to meet her at a nightclub the following night. The next day, Lorraine visits the watchmaker and takes a brown envelope that has the details for the contact in East Berlin she asked for. Percival is surveilling the watchmaker and hears their conversation. Back in her hotel, Lorraine dismantles the watch and uses the information contained inside to decipher a location on the map. She disguises herself and crosses the border to meet the contact. Bremovich is immediately informed that Lorraine crossed the border into East Berlin and orders his men to capture her, but she manages to hide in a cinema, then sets off a fire alarm and escapes during the confusion. She encounters one of Bremovich's men and they begin to brawl. Lorraine stabs him in the face with a set of keys, but it has little effect. He kicks her through the cinema screen and she runs and finally makes it outside the building. Lorraine loses Bremovich's men and makes it to a rooftop where the contact is waiting for her. Back in West Berlin, Bogdan enters the watchmaker's shop. Percival watches him go inside and smiles. Bogdan tells the watchmaker that he is interested in selling a watch that is extremely valuable and filled with secrets. That night, Lorraine visits the nightclub Delphine invited her to. The two share a kiss before Delphine leads her to a quiet room in the back of the club. Lorraine takes Delphine's gun off of her and points it at her head, asking her why she is carrying a weapon. Delphine says she knows Lorraine is MI6 and is in Berlin because of the death of Gascoigne. Lorraine angrily asks her what she knows about Gascoigne. Delphine says she doesn't have any information regarding his murder but reveals that she is a French intelligence officer who has only been stationed in Berlin for a year and is scared of ending up like Gascoigne, murdered as a result of the list. Lorraine lowers the weapon and the two kiss again before heading back to Delphine's apartment where things get hot and heavy. Delphine informs Lorraine there's something she needs to tell her about Percival. Lorraine turns music on to stop anyone from listening in on their conversation. Delphine leans over and whispers something into her ear. In the debriefing room, Kurzfeld and Gray are listening to a recording of her conversation with Delphine and ask if she provided any information they couldn't hear while the music was playing. Lorraine lies and says Delphine gave her nothing. Back in Berlin, Percival lures Bogdan to an alley, kills him, and takes the wristwatch containing the list from him. We cut to a structure overlooking the Berlin Wall. Lorraine meets Kurzfeld, who gives her a newspaper. When Lorraine dials the number in the paper, a distorted voice informs her that Satchel has been compromised. In East Berlin, Percival is busy viewing the contents of the list and discovers the identity of Satchel. Lorraine meets Percival in a bar where he lets it slip that he knows Spyglass, even though he said he'd never met him. He tells Lorraine that Spyglass committed the entire list to memory. Lorraine and Percival make plans to escort Spyglass across the border to West Berlin during a protest march the following day. Percival then meets with Bremovich, who suspects he has the list. Percival offers to provide him with information that will keep the balance, but doesn't elaborate further on what that is. Lorraine travels to East Berlin and together with Percival they meet with her contact and prepare to get Spyglass across the border. They give him a new look and passport. Lorraine and Spyglass attempt to blend into the crowd of protesters, but they are immediately spotted by the KGB. A sniper has them in his sights. Lorraine's contact whistles and people in the crowd open their umbrellas, blocking the sniper's vision. Despite the cover, Spyglass is shot in the stomach with a silenced pistol by none other than Percival. Lorraine takes Spyglass into a nearby building to look for medical supplies and battles her way through multiple KGB agents but is eventually pinned down by gunfire in a room. Lorraine brawls with the same henchman she fought in the cinema, but she manages to beat him this time. Spyglass and her escape the building and drive off in a police car. They are chased and shot at by the KGB but eventually escape and stop next to a river. Suddenly another KGB vehicle rams into them and knocks them into the river. Spyglass's foot is stuck and the car is filling with water and sinking rapidly. Lorraine tries her best to set him free but it's no use. She escapes and swims to the surface. Her contact finds her and gives her a blanket to warm her up. Using a fake passport, he gets her across the border to West Berlin. Back in her hotel, Lorraine realizes Percival planted a bug in her coat. Delphine arrives and Lorraine tells her that she needs to get out of Berlin. She tells her Percival set them both up and shows her the tracking device. Delphine phones Percival and tells him she knows his secrets. Percival goes to LaSalle's apartment and kills her, escaping moments before Lorraine arrives. She finds an envelope addressed to her with photos Delphine took of Percival's meeting with Bremovich. In the meantime, Percival has set fire to his apartment and is planning to leave Berlin but finds that his tires have been slashed. Lorraine confronts him and shoots him, then takes the watch containing the list off his wrist. In the debriefing room, Lorraine presents Delphine's photographs and audio recordings which paint Percival as Satchel. However, we see Lorraine doctor the audio recordings by combining out-of-context audio clips from multiple conversations she had with Percival and Bremovich. She denies knowing the list's whereabouts, leaving MI6 no choice but to close the case. 3 days later in Paris, Lorraine, now speaking in Russian, meets with Bremovich, who addresses her as Comrade Satchel. She gives him the wristwatch containing the list. Bremovich, having learned from Percival there is more to Satchel than he had previously known, orders his men to kill her. Satchel uses a gun she had hidden in the ice to dispatch the KGB and shoots Bremovich. Then, speaking with an American accent, she tells Bremovich she always fed him misinformation to manipulate the KGB. She kills Bremovich. Lorraine and Kurzfeld return to the United States with the list. In their friendly conversation, we learn that Lorraine is a triple agent and had been working for the CIA all along. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell. It helps a lot. Thanks and see you again very soon.